So today I'm going to tell you a story about a practice I tried working with a couple months ago. It was a small solo private practice. They were in a good location. She had a very busy schedule and her patients really liked her. But behind the scenes, it was total chaos. Within the last year, she had 22 staff turnovers. That's nearly 2 people quitting or being fired every month. And she only had 4 employees. So what drove this constant turnover, right? Yes, some were just bad hires, but the real issue was much deeper. And it's something I see way more often than you would think. So let's break down what happened and what she should have done differently. Let's start at the beginning with the very first person in a leadership role in this practice, her office manager. Now, on paper, she seemed great. She had been working with this practice for a while, and the doctor trusted her completely. But that trust came at a cost. It turned out that this office manager had been stealing thousands of dollars from this physician. And it had been going on for months before anyone found out. And if you're thinking, how could this possibly happen? Well, it happens way more than you might think. Because in fact, over 80% of all healthcare practices report theft or stolen from their employees. That's huge, right? So she wasn't alone in this one. And here's how the doctor figured it out. A vendor had called and said that they hadn't been paid, even though the back office book showed that this person had been paid and the check cleared. So that's when the doctor started to dig. And she started realizing that money had been being diverted and records were being manipulated. And mostly it came from cash from the patients. They didn't have a checks and balance in place. And that's where the red flag sent everything else in motion. After the office manager was let go, the entire practice started to unravel. So here's what should have happened. First, they should have had a financial checks and balance in place. They needed regular internal audits, and they needed dual sign-offs on payments that were collected every day. Also, they need clear separation of financial duties. No one person should have full control over all the money. And honestly, even if you hate managing people, you can't fully check out as an owner. You have to stay involved in the key oversight areas, especially when it comes to your finances. So after the original office manager was let go, it took a while for the doctor to find a replacement. And during this time, the practice was kind of just running on survival mode. It was just trying to keep up with day-to-day tasks. Now, this particular doctor does not like managing or conflict, which is honestly very common for physicians. But if you don't have anyone else to do it, you have to be the one doing it until you get a replacement. So a lot of front desks and MAs came and went during this time because they either weren't trained or they shouldn't have been there in the first place, because they didn't have the right qualifications needed for the job. So eventually she brought on a new office manager. But here's the problem. It was a panic hire. That person had no medical practice experience, and she really hadn't even managed anyone before. She was only hired because she was trustworthy. And because the doctor didn't like to onboard, there really wasn't one. So you have a new office manager who has no medical experience and is not getting trained by the physician on how she likes things, what she needs to do, or anything like that. She was left to figure it all out on her own, which obviously did not happen, which is also something else I see a lot. Whether somebody has experience or not, every single new hire needs to be onboarded the same way. They need to be trained on how your practice runs. You need to have regular check-ins, not just on day one, but for like 30 to 60 days after that. Either the physician or the office manager has to be available, intentional, and proactive in helping these people succeed. Otherwise, you're just setting them up to fail. And you're starting the turnover cycle over again. So here's the truth. This doctor did not want to manage at all. Still doesn't. She stayed out of day-to-day issues, avoided having any staff meetings, and hoped problems just would fix themselves. She figured the employees would just kind of figure it out eventually, but they didn't. So without leadership, everything started to spiral. Her old staff took advantage of the situation. She was coming in late or just not showing up for work at all. Her new staff was confused, patients were complaining, and no one felt supported. So here's the thing. Leadership does not mean micromanaging, but it does mean being present and available to answer questions when they're needed, and have a clear system in place with check-ins and accountability. Otherwise, chaos is just going to keep repeating itself. Now, all these issues, plus the fact that the doctor refused to decrease her schedule to allow the new people time to adjust and figure things out. And not only was her schedule just regular full, it was double and triple booked. She also didn't want to make time to answer their questions daily or every other day, and there were no weekly meetings of checking in with the person and seeing how they were doing, or even course correct. So at this point, you start to get team burnout. Your patient experience falls apart, calls aren't getting answered, and tasks were dropped. And the overall energy inside this practice felt tense. No one was in a good mood, everybody was frustrated and super stressed out. Here's the reality. High turnover doesn't just cost you time, it damages your reputation, it disrupts patient care, and it slowly breaks your business from the inside out. At this point, she needed to invest in support, whether that meant leadership coaching, operations consulting, or hiring a strong, experienced practice manager to rebuild some structure and stability. So eventually, she ended up hiring us, briefly. We were brought in to recruit a new office manager and an MA, and we consulted with her for a couple of months. But here's the issue. She wasn't willing to implement any of the changes we suggested. For example, we suggested she scale back her schedule just a little bit so her new people could get caught up. We suggested she work with the staff to help train them and succeed and make sure they know how she likes things. And we suggested a few other things, but none of this happened. And the truth is, if you're not willing to make necessary changes, your practice isn't going to improve. And there's no point in hiring a consultant if you aren't ready to act on any of the advice. And as for the office manager, we're still looking because she wants and needs someone with deep experience who can walk in and take charge and whip the practice into shape, which is going to require a salary of like $70,000 or more. But she doesn't have the budget for that. And not only that, she knows a practice that is similar to hers in town who says they pay their office manager $20 an hour, even though she has no idea what this person is actually doing. But in her mind, she can find somebody for the same amount. So we're still searching. Here's some key takeaways from this story. Leadership gaps do not just cause turnover. They compound it. Without clear direction and structure and support, good hires can't succeed. Next, every new hire needs onboarding. Experience does not replace training. Every practice runs different and providers do things different. If you skip onboarding, you're setting your new staff member up for failure. Next, you can't fix chaos by outsourcing it. If you want real change, you have to be willing to adjust your own approach. Next, investing in people requires more than just a paycheck. It requires time, presence, and being willing to lead or empower somebody who will. This practice didn't fall apart overnight. It unraveled slowly because of unchecked leadership gaps, high turnover, and a refusal to course correct both the staff and themselves. If you want a strong, stable practice, it starts with hiring the right people and creating an environment where they can actually thrive. If you are needing help with your practice and you're open to change, then schedule a free one-on-one call with me through the link in the descriptions. Now, one of the first warning signs that your leadership or systems are slipping is theft. If you haven't seen it yet, check out this next video on how to spot theft in a healthcare practice, because catching it early can prevent the kind of spiral we just talked about, and it can also save you up to thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.